attendees, listen to my words. You will have fun. You will enjoy this weekend. You will enjoy this next panel. Speaking of this next panel, the first guest to be introduced on this panel is doing his part to help keep the Doctor Who mythos alive. Despite having to work around certain copyright restrictions, he's doing quite well. He's the producer of the videos Summoned by Shadows and More Than a Messiah, and the man who's helping keep Doctor Who and my job in the public eye. Please welcome Bill Baggs. Our next guest for this panel. What can I say about this next guest? She is a delightful young lady to know, even though I have heard from my successor that she can be kind of loud on occasion. But nonetheless, it's a very great pleasure to welcome Miss Perpigillium Brown, Nicola Bryant. I trust you weren't expecting any assistance from me, because you weren't going to get it. It's the comfy chair torture.
Can we sell tickets for rides on this? Is yours the same?
Last, not least, in a few dimensions, I must with some disgust, respect, introduce the final guest for this panel. Granted, he is one of the incarnations of my best enemy, but he is at least to me the most agreeable of the seven. Ladies and gentlemen, Colin Baker.
Rami, I presume. Yes, she was amazing. The facial hair could be a problem, my dear. You know why you couldn't sit on the sofa? Do you know who was called this morning? I've told her now. I'm told it's not that kind of show, folks. You all right, Bill? Thank you. A nice warm round of applause for the master.
Thank you.
Whatever happened to Anthony Angley? Was he? How are you all? What's your name? Not one person answered. What's your name? Hi, Charlie. The loudest gets the reply. We are here to answer your questions. We are here to please you. We are here to delight you. We are here to reveal all those things you always wanted to know about Doctor. Can you all see? No. Shall we make ourselves higher? Yes. Is that better? Yes. Is this better still? Yes. It's all very nice for us, but if you can't see, there's not much point in us all being here, really, is there? Let's kind of hang out, shall we? Who's got some questions? Anyone like to ask a question? Or shall we tell you some things first? Well, the three of us are here as a combination because we have been involved in some projects together, which the mastermind over there, amazingly, he's only 13, his 13-year-old Bill Baggs here, had an idea of doing something which was nothing whatsoever to do with Doctor Who. About a guy called the Stranger, who may or may not travel through time and space, and who may or may not have a companion called Miss Brown, and whose age may or may not be 1,000 years, may or may not have 2 hearts, etc. And we've done 2 complete stories now, and we're halfway through filming the 3rd. More Than Messiah, and the other one whose name I can never remember. Someone by Shadows, thank you. And the 3rd one is called In Memory Alone. Right? And Nicola and I, and a very clever chap called Nick Briggs, who wrote and is also in Memory Alone, have done over half of the filming so far. And when we go back home, both Nicola and I are off to do pantomime, but afterwards we're going to finish the filming, and it'll be available when? No, yours works. Yes.
I'll try this one. That's better. Yes, it should be ready hopefully at the end of January. There we go.
Yeah. And there are plans for another one, aren't there? 4th one.
Oh, yes.
Go on then. Tell us about that one. Yes.
Well, it's all sort of in the idea stage at the moment, because next year, as you know, is a big year for Doctor Who. Oh, sorry, The Stranger. Sorry.
Stranger.
Yes.
It was nothing to do with Doctor Who.
Of course he is. It's an avatar. Yes, we're planning to do, hopefully, a project that would feature not only Colin, but other doctors themselves. Oh, sorry, strangers.
There's a lot of very strange people in English.
There's quite a few Miss Browns as well, actually.
I mean, if I say to you that I personally see Peter Davison quite often, and he's very strange, and a mutual friend of ours, Sophie Aldred, sees another very strange chap quite often, and they could be, you know, strange in the next video. Who knows? Stranger things have happened. They're not going to get any better.
How many people would be interested in a project for next year, though?
I know why you're saying this, but there's looking for people to invest in it.
Yes, I've got some money so far. It's obviously going to cost a lot more than the projects we've done up to now, but anybody who's got loads of money, come talk to me afterwards. No, but I mean, it needs your support in a way to go ahead, because obviously if it doesn't sell, then there's no point in doing it. But the first 3, there's been enough interest in them really to keep on going. I've been surprised and pleased with the results and also your reaction to them. I think everybody has agreed they're getting better and better as we go along.
And this is how Ridley Scott started, folks. Remember that? Watch out. You'll change your name though, won't you?
I think Bill Banks.
Ridley Banks.
Ridley Banks.
Oh, look, I got Ridley Banks. Big Banks, all Ridley. Would anyone like to ask any questions about either the projects we're just talking about, or indeed any of our individual careers? I mean, you don't know anything about Bill, do you? He actually works for the BBC. Would you believe? But yeah, yes. but not in a capacity that could alter the future of Doctor Who, unfortunately. When he's control of the programmes, things will be different. Who'd like to ask us anything?
There's a gentleman this one back there.
I can't see anything because of the lights.
Right. Gentleman, you can see.
You'll have to be brave and shout.
So even though it's similar in format and theme to Doctor Who, the BBC hasn't caught on yet. Is that what you're saying?
What I am saying, I'm a lawyer, let me deal with this. What I am saying is that the only company that has any right to do a programme called Doctor Who is the BBC. All the elements of Doctor Who are copyrighted. Therefore, even if we wanted to, and we don't, we couldn't make Doctor Who. But what we can do is do programmes involving the same actors about playing similar parts. But not the same. It's up to you. If you foolishly think it's the same as Doctor Who, then nothing we can do about that. That is not our intention. Alright?
That's why Miss Brown would never have a name like Purple Gilliam.
No. And she's not American,
and she's not American, so she's obviously a completely different
And
person.
she's much thinner, too. Isn't she? Don't you think so? She is thinner. I wish I was.
Talking about whether the BBC actually recognise their existence, they do know that these videos are produced. An element of More Than a Messiah, a scene with Colin and Nicola is featuring on the Colin Baker Years tape that's due for release sometime next year, that enterprises have done. So they're fully aware that the projects go ahead, and I think they look at it as they can't be bothered to do it, so, and it doesn't get in their way, which is quite good in a way. But who knows what they'll do next year themselves, in fact.
Quite. Any more questions down here? Ah, right, Sarah, on the front.
What do you think about the way Peri loved the show and Peri about the way he loved the show?
What do I think about the way Peri left the show, and what does she think about the way she left the show? Go on, Nicola, you answer first.
Right, well, when I knew that obviously I'd be leaving the show because my contract was coming to an end, and John Nathan Turner said to me, "How do you want to leave the show?" And I said to him very clearly that I just didn't want to sort of shake hands and say, "Goodbye, Doctor," and sort of, send you a postcard or something, I didn't want it to be some sort of namby-pamby ending. I said I wanted to go with a bang, which of course then got misquoted in the tabloids. And I just wanted it to be something dramatic. When Philip Martin, wasn't it, who actually wrote that one, came up with the idea, I thought it was brilliant. I loved the whole idea of the mind transplant and the ball sequence, and I thought it was powerful, and I really enjoyed it. I understood that it also upset a lot of people because they just thought it was the end of Peri, but I can never view it like that because you're talking about time. All you have to do is go back to yesterday. And
Also,
that's something the Doctor can always do.
You're the queen.
Yeah. Eventually.
Queen of the contest, aren't you?
It was then revealed that I was supposedly married to Brian Blessed. Now that I'm not too happy about, actually. I have to say. I mean, like, what a couple. God, can you imagine? I mean, she would, absolutely firm, she would have to have him like that, I think. She'd have to sort of stop all this, gallivanting around, having wars and all that stuff, and he'd be sort of trying to control himself at home and doing washing the dishes instead of going out there fighting. I mean, you can imagine it, can't you? But I don't think they were a perfectly matched couple, and I think that ending was a cop-out. But I think actually Peri, having a mind transplant as an end was rather dramatic, and I liked it.
It's quite a strong moment, actually, that scene.
I thought he gave Nicola an opportunity to show that. Shut your ears out, please. Fingers in the ears. He gave Nicola in the ears. Put them in the ears. In the ears now. He gave Nicola an opportunity to show what a very good actress she was, didn't he? Don't you think so? Yes. Because after 3 years of having to scream and play the little woman, she finally got to do something with a bit of woomph behind it. And it was very impressive. It put a chill down my spine, I can tell you. So, well done, Nicola. Yes. Yes. There's a hand over there. Yes, sir.
Yeah, I just wanted to know, with the new Summons and Messiah and all this, are they going to be coming out of the VHS for America? Or
They are.
I just bought two. I just wonder, are they come out at the same time as they do in London?
It's getting easier, actually, because I was working in LA for 3 months, and I was able to establish some very good contacts with some of your dealers over here, and there's no reason now why it shouldn't be a lot quicker. I mean, it did take a while initially with Summon, it took a long while, but no, I should think with memory alone, and certainly, she's good, isn't she? She's good value.
There's a comedy element to this, too.
It just gets you all with one thing, shouldn't entertain you. Yeah, no, there's no reason why they shouldn't be much quicker. And I'm hoping that the bigger project, certainly by the sounds of it, to get as much as American money as British money involved in the project. So with that one, you probably get it earlier.
It's quite hard standing up. All of you who've been standing in autograph lines know your legs get tired after a while. There's a hand over there in the light.
Yes, could you tell us what pantos you won't be doing this holiday season, and where?
Nicola.
Well, for the first time, I'm no longer playing Principal Girl. I'm playing Principal Boy. And I'm going to be slapping my slapping my thighs in Guildford, at the Civic Hall in Guildford in Cinderella.
And I shall be playing the captain in Dick Whittington at the Pavilion Theatre Weymouth on the south coast for 3 weeks until the 9th of January. You're welcome. I think the best thing is to just go to the microphone and grab it, because there's so much light here we can't see your hands. And there's a microphone there in the centre, so just fire away.
Okay, I'd like to know what direction you would like to take the doctor, if you would continue on this part, and who would like to take the character in a different direction from the beginning, or if that's the direction you originally wanted to go in.
Well, I would have liked to have taken it in the direction of the year 2000, really. We all know about that, don't we? No, I mean, there was, in my mind, and certainly in conversations I had with John, a sort of long-term plan that we don't reveal everything about this person straight away, because it's boring. If you know everything about somebody, why bother looking at them again? It's like any relationship with anybody. I've been married for 10 years, and my wife and I are still discovering things, nice things about each other. And that's quite enough of that. So it's certainly true that we started off with a very deliberate plan of making the Doctor a little inaccessible and irascible and harkening back a lot to the Hartnell days of that very strange, unapproachable man. And as you remember, we spent 4 episodes with the Doctor in some kind of manic frenzy, trying to throttle Peri, which is very understandable, and doing other things which we won't talk about now, Jenna. I think anyone who's been alive for 900 years, has got 2 hearts, a body temperature of whatever it's supposed to be, isn't necessarily going to behave in exactly the same way as you or I would if we were in that situation. So I think it's quite nice not to show everything all at once. At the end of a story, don't think, I'm not quite sure why he did that. And I always find the most interesting things on television or film are the ones that you have to do some of the work. I don't like being spoon-fed, which is why I like things like Twin Peaks. I don't know everybody else likes Twin Peaks. But there are all sorts of little oblique things going all over the place that you either latch onto and try and work out, or you just take as part of the scenery. And I think that's quite nice for any character. That, you can live in the same street as someone for 20 years and not know something quite major about them. They hang glide every Sunday afternoon. And I think it's the same with the Doctor. I think you should always be finding out new things. And I think his, quotes, humanity, unquote, should be taken for granted, so that when he appears to be behaving in an uncompassionate way, you don't latch onto that and say, he's not my Doctor anymore. It's a big jigsaw with lots of little pieces, and that's what I enjoyed about it. And I was looking forward to it developing, which you never really had a chance to do, because the first series was the kind of establishing of this strange, arrogant, brash new persona. And the second series, which was already written but never happened, and suddenly we were into that third series, which was cobbled together in an attempt to please Michael Gray, who wanted more comedy and less violence, and at the same time to parody, which may or may not have been wise, the whole idea of the programme being on trial by having the Doctor on trial. So the character was a pawn, in a sense, in that, artistic political game of the BBC, which didn't necessarily help the programme. Perhaps Bill or Nicola have views on this, I don't know. Anyway.
I think everything that you said is absolutely true. I mean, I suffered a different problem But I think that series, when we went back, from my point of view at least, we had a better relationship. But every scene that I filmed with you was only in flashback as part of the trial, and I think that did mean that we ended up with a slightly sort of cobbled up season. And I think you should still be being the Doctor, and I think in the year 2000 you will not be.
It's quite interesting watching as a fan, actually, because I think although it was quite an interesting idea, the Doctor being on trial, I think on a reality you sense that there were problems, and that it wasn't easy behind the scenes as well. And it was quite sad that you left.
Yeah.
Thank you both. Next.
Okay, I have 3 questions I'd like to ask you. First of all, when the show was cancelled, did you know it was coming, or was it a shock? Like, was it in the work beforehand?
What, when it was cancelled after my first season?
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't know at all. No, they'd already renewed my contract. Which meant they had to pay me. We got paid, which was quite nice because it was at the same time as my first daughter was born, so it was kind of paternity leave, which I approve of as a concept. So no, not a clue. Everyone was very surprised by that. It was quite sudden. What's your follow-on question?
Okay, the second question in relation to that, do you think that Peter Davison knew and that's why he might have left?
No, not at all. Peter Davison never wanted to do more than 3 years. He had done 2 or 3 series on the BBC beforehand and on other TV channels, and had always done 3 series, and he regarded that as lucky for him. And I'm sure he would say himself that he wasn't perhaps as attached to Doctor Who as other people might be. For him it was a job in a series of jobs, and even though he enjoyed doing it, he knew it was time to move on. And he was probably right, because he's done a lot of good work since. So I don't think he was gifted with any precognition of the fact that Michael Gray would arrive at the BBC and behave in the way he did.
As far as the being given notice or whatever, I mean, we had our sort of 3-week holiday or whatever it was, and then we were due back to do the season, and I'd been away, I'd gone to Venice for a week, and I came back, and Jonathan had been trying to get hold of me, but he couldn't find me in Venice, and I walked into my home, and the phone was ringing, and I picked up the phone, and it was the Daily Mirror, and I don't remember the gentleman, used to tell rather loosely, the gentleman's name, but he said to me, could we have your comments please on the death of Doctor Who? I thought it was Colin. Which is not funny at all, no. I mean, I was absolutely grief-stricken and I burst into tears and I just put the phone down because I couldn't answer his question, and I was ringing my agent. The phone then went again instantly, and it was my agent. And he went, oh, Nicola, I'm so glad I got hold of you. I went, yes, I know, it's Colin, he's dead, obviously, but he's married and his baby, and are you talking about me? And it was the programme, and I just like, when this reporter said death of Doctor Who, I assumed they meant Colin. But that was the extent of my knowledge of what was going on.
I'm still here.
So the third question I'd like to ask, okay, Colin, this is for Nicola, this is for Colin only. Okay, Colin, I would like to know what you think of Time Lash.
What I think of Time Lash? Well, if you asked me that question about 5 or 6 weeks ago, I would say it was my least favourite of all the programmes I did. I thought it was the least satisfactory in terms of script. And there was something that didn't quite live up to expectations about it. But having reviewed it, which I did recently because I was asked to choose my clips for inclusion in the Colin Baker year's BBC release tape, I actually found it to watch, because I never actually saw it when it went out, I don't think. When I watched it, I thought it actually stood up much better than I remembered. And the difference between doing something and the end result isn't, I'll start the sentence again, doing something may have an effect on you because of what you were feeling at that time. And when you look back at it, there's a terrible echo suddenly come, which is putting me on. When you look back at it, all that element is removed and you can see it for what it is. And in fact, I thought it stood up extremely well. There were lots of bits of it I thought were very good. I thought the guy who played the robot, the blue robot, you know the one? I thought that was a wonderful creation. I think the story was a bit odd. That Borat who kept dying and not dying. But all the H.G. Wells element I thought was very funny and clever. And it was all right. Yes. It wasn't great, but neither was it horrendous. What do you think about it?
Well, I met Nicola previously at Who Party in Toronto, and she had a few other comments about Time Rush.
Oh, did you? Well, share them with the people here today, Nicola.
Well, the gentleman at the microphone just put his fingers in his ears while I had my say. No, I mean, from the female companion's point of view, it could have been episode 2, 1963. Because the original character that I began with bore absolutely no resemblance to the Peri that I was playing in that episode. It could have been written for any companion, bar, I think, myself probably, and Leila, who would not have behaved in that manner. It had nothing to do with the character that I started out with. And that made me angry. And I just thought it was unnecessary that there we are in the mid to late 80s making an episode where I spent 3 episodes and oh, what's his name, the director?
Pennant Roberts.
Pennant Roberts.
Pennant, thank you. Pennant, I spoke to him actually recently, I saw him, and we were talking about it, and he said he apologised all the time. The fact I'm saying we've got to come back to another shot of you still tied up. Can we just have another bit more footage of, yes, just another screen, sorry about this. You know, and it was like for 3 of the episodes you kept sort of looking back and thinking, oh, she's still there. Right, okay. Now she's got this bit tied to her, now she's running down this corridor, and I think of all the sets as well, the corridor sets with that plant, and having to shove a plant in a man's face, you know, the robot's face, in order to, and then just drop it, you know, foolishly, until nothing else to do, and go, you know, I think of all my stories, it was the most feeble and totally out of character for Peri. So.
Over here now.
You were talking about Brian Blessed earlier. What was it like to work with him, and did you have to use earplugs?
You've summed it up, really. Brian Blessed is one of those wonderful people in life that you actually cannot tell stories about in mixed company. I can think of wonderful stories I can tell you about Brian, but I'm looking around, I better not. No, there are occasions where he's just someone who is larger in life than any of the characters he plays. I mean, he was toning himself down to play that character. I don't know how much you know about Brian, but the year before last he actually climbed Mount Everest down near to the top because he always wanted to do it. And I mean, he breeds fish and animals, and he's got a huge sort of small holding where, I mean, he just does everything in a big way. And he's a great person. He won't brook any kind of authority at all. He just rides over it with a sonic boom almost. I will tell you one story, and instead of using the word he used, I'll use another word. There was one scene, it was at the end of, what was it? It was Mind Warp. You were there, were you? Yes, you're right though. Yeah, it was Mind Warp. And what I have to tell you first of all is that at 10 o'clock in the studio, the plugs are pulled because the technicians don't want to work overtime. That's it. So in the last 15 minutes of every program, there is a mad rush to get all the remaining scenes done. And I discovered this on my very, very first appearance in Doctor Who when I did my regeneration scene in Caves of Androzani, where I saw a special effects man sobbing in the corner of the studio because he had created a creature called the magma monster. And the magma monster was supposed to have a great fight with the Doctor, which the Doctor finally overcomes the magma monster in order to get the bat's milk to rescue Peri from certain death. They were down to the last few minutes in the studio, so it was a wonderfully creative monster. It was audio animatronics and did quite a few things with rods and had about 7 men operating the thing. And they decided to light on the floor, and the Doctor came up to him and said, "Not your day, was it?" And walked past it. And this guy spent weeks perfecting this creature, and it was never used. It never did anything. It just lay there dead. And what they had to do was actually explain how it had died. So I realised that Doctor Who was made on quite a tight budget, because overtime cost a lot of money. So and every other actor and everybody else involved in the programme knows that. So even though you may crack a few jokes or do things like that at 4 o'clock in the afternoon, in the last half hour of the day, it's serious work to try and get as many scenes recorded as you can. Well, on this particular occasion, Brian Blessed, playing King Iokarnos, had to run down a corridor with myself and, it might have been Dorf, I can't remember, and open the door and rescue you, I think, and drag you out. And his line should have been, "Now let's see if we can find the rest of the," what they call it, the Mysterons or something, the mentors. Thank you very much. There's always someone out there who can, now let's go and find the mentors, was it? And he couldn't remember the word mentor. So it was 1 minute to 10, we'd done this whole long complex scene, explosion, running out, opening doors, straight up, all in one long tracking shot, so you couldn't cut anything into it. And he burst out the door and he said, "Right, now let's find the..." And he invented a word, half of which was a word we do not use in polite company, and was very clearly one that... and the second half was the arons. Let's go and find the something arons, which of course was totally unbroadcastable. Now, any other actor would have been shouted at. They didn't shout at Brian. Is it? And he laughed. Ah! And they did a remount, which cost a lot of money, and recorded that scene in another studio. But it must be quite nice being Brian Blessed, because nobody argues with you very much. And he used to say the wickedest things to, what's her name? It was you, wasn't it? Yes. Yes, it was you.
Yes, he did.
Yes.
Can you tell us about it?
No, I mean, he was convinced that I should try and climb the face of Katie thing. Every lunchtime we'd be sitting down and going, "So we're going to go climbing together then, eh?" It's just like, we had a lot of fun, but he is somebody that is, well, you just didn't know what was going to happen. I mean, I didn't know, like, when we walked to rehearse that scene, he was going to, like, lift me up in the middle of it. I mean, you just sort of went with it. All right, fine.
Nick.
It was very good fun to work with.
Next one.
I was just wondering, after the story that you wrote in the last Marvel Annual, we plan on doing more fiction writing.
Me? Are they okay? Do you like my stories? Well, I quite enjoy doing them, and it's an area that I'm getting into a bit more. And I've been asked by Marvel Comics, and I've said yes in principle, but I need to talk more about it. They've asked me if, in collaboration with the drawer of the cartoons, if I will script the cartoon element of the strip cartoon, you know, in the Marvel Comics. So I might be doing that. All sorts of things have been suggested about novelisations, and if I have time, I might even have a go at that too. But yeah, I like it. I enjoy doing it. And I think for an actor who is used to being on one side of the camera, it's quite nice to sit down sometimes in the quiet and actually work with a paper and pencil or the word processor.
If you do, will you bring Frobisher back?
Well, I like Frobisher, don't I? Yes. But that would have to be a policy decision by the magazine, but we can talk about that, yes. Penguin Liberation. PLO, Penguin Liberation Organisation.
You threatened to write one for me once, haven't you? I said you threatened to write one for me once.
Well, yes, but you don't pay enough. But maybe you would.
Let the other side go first, they've been waiting for.
The other side. Thank you very much. You're a kind person.
Thank you.
Hello, other side.
My question is, did you read the original scripts for season 23? And if so, do you think those were better than the finished product?
Well, I read the... Coming back on a plane from a convention, John took out his briefcase, John Nathan Turner, and pulled out Nightmare Fair and said, do you want to read the first story for the new season? I said, oh, yes. Were you there too? I can't remember. I don't think you were. And I sat and read it, and I said to him as I put it down, I think that's one of the best ones I've ever done. Thinking I was going to be doing it at that time. And I actually thought it was potentially a very, very good script indeed. The others, I didn't actually realise the others were as far down the path of preparation as they were. But I've never seen them, no. But I gather they've been novelised now, some of them. But I don't know whether the Nightmare Fair... I actually did read that, and I think it did stand. It was very close to the script. I don't know what you thought of it as a story, but I thought it was excellent. So, yeah, I think it's a shame that all those... I was looking forward to the Auton story, that they were going to film in Singapore, I think. And I remember them saying that they'd arranged the filming with the Singapore Tourist Bureau, and the Chinese gentleman who was in charge of that was called Dr. Hu, H-U. Which would have been amazing, wouldn't it?
There was a skyline, wasn't there? There was some skyline where in Singapore that there was a particular area that was supposed to look like New York.
Oh, that's right.
And the whole plot was going to be that you were going to be trying to get me back to America, and we'd be arriving at Singapore, and you'd go, well, New York. And that was going to be the sort of starting point of how we got there.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
I've learned something today.
Thanks.
Over that side again, right. What a nice lady. You don't want to ask a question?
Okay.
The middle. Oh, we can't see you, you see. I'm sorry. Can't see you. Okay, middle.
On a different tack for a moment, aside from the fact that the costume looked very warm, were you having as much fun as it looked like you were having playing Babe and the Berserker?
Babe! Yes, I think there's only one person in Blake 7 who was put off to see someone arriving dressed all in black and playing in a manner which could be described, I suppose, as over the top. I enjoyed it. Yeah, it was great fun. Veer Lorimer directed it, and Veer Lorimer was a director that I worked with in a series called The Brothers years before, and I was very, very fond of. He was a really good man, and he's the sort that he would say to an actor, and I remember seeing this happen, right, when the gun fires, I want you to go, ugh, and then fall backwards and roll down this hill, you see. And the actor as a joke said, do you want to show me what you mean, Veer? And Veer, who was about 60 at the time, said, yes, all right, we did it. And then the actor, unfortunately, was in a position of having to do it himself. Because if the director could do it, he had to. It was a great part, and I must confess I took a little license with it, because all those things like skulls and earrings and myself and the wardrobe department concocted as a sort of joke, really. But we found we recorded 2 or 3 scenes before the director and producer noticed. So when they said, you can't wear all that, we said, well, we've already established it, and we had. So that's the way Babe had to be. Can you imagine what his mother's like, though? I think we ought to get... we ought to have suggestions for the casting of Babe and the Berserker's mother.
Margaret Thatcher.
And you do realise now, of course, that now that Blake is dead, Jim, now that Blake's dead, that Babe, who survived that explosion, okay, is now the most wanted man in the galaxy. Now there's a thought. I think he should have his own series, don't you?
First off,
I want to thank you for strangling me in the photo session.
That's all right, you survived it.
I'll send you a copy. I've always enjoyed all the doctors, whatever, but it was Peter who hooked me on who I had my sophomore English teacher to thank, because I had to read all creatures in English. Then I got hooked on the BBC. They were put on cable. For some reason, they put Channel 11 on Channel 38. I came home from playing Handel at church at midnight mass, one night mass service, and we were going and said, this person, that's how I got hooked. I've always enjoyed all of your shows, and just visit.
I shall tell Peter when I see him.
How is he doing? I fell in love with him again in Campion. He was great there.
He's just been doing a play called The Decorator on the stage. I don't know what he's doing at the moment, but I'm sure he would wish me to say hello to you all. Because our two little girls were in the same class together at school, so they play together a lot. So whenever I'm dropping Lucy off to play with Georgia, I see Peter. It's quite nice.
Can you compliment coming to business next year? He's the only doctor I've ever met, with the exception of the first two.
For you, yes.
Thanks for a memorable day.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Do you have a question for Bill or Nicola?
Okay, you mentioned that you and your sister used to watch Doctor Who when you were younger. And I used to go to school in England as well, and I found that none of the girls really used to watch it or talk about it. So, were you by yourself, sort of, or is it just that they wouldn't talk to the boys about it?
I don't know about your school. I was in an all-girls school. And we all watched it. And everybody played Daleks in the playground, and everybody was always exterminating everybody. And we all thought, it was a case of, so you're too scared to watch it, are you? No, I mean, I just think everybody I knew watched it when I was growing up. It was just one of those shows. We're the same sort of generation, aren't we, Bill? Didn't everybody used to watch it?
Yes, I think so.
Yeah. I mean, I can't think of anybody in my school that sort of like didn't like it or anything like that. But everybody was terrified of it, and I was incredibly cruel. Hello, Debbie.
Was that the answer to the question? Yeah, sweet.
And I was incredibly cruel to my sister because she was terrified of the show. And I used to just drag her down practically by her hair, go, and forcefully watch it. She's never recovered it.
What does she think of you being in it?
It's great, yeah, terrific, yeah. She came to the studio once, and came round and saw it, and she just behaved, she had a good time. Behaved like a good fan of the show, like, oh, this is great, this is so much fun.
Took my microphone away.
It's really good.
How's that? There, you can have it back again. Thank you. Thank you, Debbie.
Right, I also have a two-part...
Who wants a sweet?
Do you pantomime it?
Hey. Sweets! Oh, it's like panto time! These aren't for you, these are for us, but I don't care. Hey, what? Sweet. And she deserves one, don't you?
Yeah.
Can you understand what we're saying, all right? The English accent isn't bothering you? Good. Thank you.
Yeah, that's fine.
Who's
The
next?
gentleman had a two-part question or something?
Okay, I have a two-part question for Colin Baker. First of all, if they make the 7 Doctors next year, would you be willing to appear in it?
No. Oh, well, all right. Only if Billy Banks is directing, all right?
He's too nice.
The second part is that it's my opinion that if the BBC don't do anything next year, then it means they don't have any serious interest in in dealing with the show furthermore. Do you agree with that?
No, because Jonathan Powell has announced his intention of leaving the BBC at the end of '93, I think, wasn't it? August '93. In August '93, Jonathan Powell is going, and he and Michael Grade were the two people who were particularly antipathetic towards the programme. It all depends on what happens when he goes. If someone comes in who doesn't have that prejudice, then it is quite possible the BBC will reconsider, amongst many other programmes which have suffered, which other people are fond of, Doctor Who. And I don't think we can rule out the possibility forever. There are all sorts of channels opening up now with satellite and cable in the UK. I mean, you're way ahead of us here with all that. And there's already a successful outlet for all the old programmes, and I think someone's going to realise the possibility for the future. And it may well be that it's benefited from a couple of years' rest. I think it's probably short-sighted in terms of BBC selling its product, but as we all know, it's a popular programme over here. And its popularity will wane slowly the longer it's off the screen. But I think eventually, if we keep our fingers crossed and don't annoy them too much, I sometimes think actually that orchestrated letter campaigns do more harm than good, because they sort of put Doctor Who fans into a kind of corner as obsessives and assume that they have no relation to the rest of their programme. And I'm not entirely sure that getting people to write hundreds of letters saying we want it back necessarily achieves anything. I might be wrong about that. Bill might have some, because he works for the BBC.
Yeah, I did deliberately speak to some Enterprises people about what the situation was with Doctor Who, and their standard reply is nothing at the moment, sorry. So I don't know whether it is still on their minds, because there is no one person. I mean, John Nathan Turner is still working at Enterprises, producing these one-off videos. But there is no one person there who actually cares enough about it. It is a body, it's an organisation. Unless you've got one person inside that organisation campaigning who's actually worth, has some weight within the company, then I'm not sure what will happen. I actually think that it won't come back, which is very sad, because obviously there is the interest. But it's not within necessarily the BBC's interest. I mean, politically, the BBC is going through a very dodgy stage at the moment. The government over there just released the green paper on it, and nobody knows what its future is going to be. I work at the moment in a news and current affairs department, doing local news, and everybody thinks that news will be safe, but that other parts of the corporation will be halved off to independents. So unless an independent comes out with a very good idea, then I don't really know what's going to happen. So that's why I've been producing these projects that I've been doing. So with any luck, something may come of it.
It would be funny if the BBC approached Bill to buy The Stranger of him, and to do a new series called The Stranger.
I think that's what will actually happen. Something like Doctor Who will come along. It would be very difficult for the BBC to bring back Doctor Who, I think. I mean, I don't know. I mean, what do you mean? It's meant to be looking forward the whole time. I know it would be extremely popular to bring it back, but
I think chance will play a large element in it. If somebody gets into a position of power who has children of an age who say, Dad, I think we should bring Doctor Who back, it'll put it in his mind and he'll start asking the right questions.
That's the trouble though, it's been off so long now that age group of people have almost...
Well, it depends on the age of the children, doesn't it?
True, but if
you've got 15-year-old children who liked it 6 years ago,
this is true.
There are scenarios where it could happen.
Yeah, the interesting thing is the sales of videos is beginning to tail off. I mean, they are obviously still popular because a lot of people still buy them, but they're not as popular as they were when the series was on air. So that's quite interesting how Enterprises are dealing with that. They're obviously looking at new areas, and maybe they will actually do something themselves next year. I'm certainly talking to them with loads of ideas, so let's see.
2 more questions. One from over here.
Hello, Colin. I'm going to let this gentleman go first because he had his hand up quite some time.
It's one to Bill, one to Colin. Quick to Bill, do you have any type of problems using The Stranger instead of Doctor for the BBC?
I've had no problems whatsoever, which is lucky.
Well, except the problem of working with me.
Oh, that's a big problem. No.
Bill's brought with him, I'm going to share this with you folks, I'm going to share this with you, this is, no, you're not to tell anybody, okay? Bill has brought with him a tape of outtakes from the stranger shooting, and I have forbidden him to show it until I've seen it, because there are various incidents potentially depicted, which I think you won't like me as much if you see them, you see.
You will.
So we're hoping it's another one of these little sessions we're going to have together. We might have a chance of showing some of those. I haven't seen them myself yet. You must understand that any words said in the heat of the moment do not reflect the views of the management.
I must say, actually, I was very delighted to work with Colin and Nicola. I wasn't at all sure what it was going to be like, but they're very, very good to work with, very responsive. It was quite interesting. I obviously admired them when they were on the series, but as we were talking about earlier, where Colin was going, what direction his character was heading in, I had an idea that we could take it even further with this series, and I think that's one thing that I'm pleased with the series. I mean, technically, there's still a lot for me to learn, and I think there's a lot of stuff we can do, but character-wise, I think the character of the stranger, Miss Brown, are certainly the way I would have liked to have seen them go if they'd have stayed on any longer than they did.
Very good for me, Miss Brown is most exciting in the one that we're doing at the moment, which I cannot reveal for reasons why, but our relationship is perhaps one of the most interesting that we could possibly have.
No.
Yes.
Spontaneous little minds.
Anything to say?
I haven't seen the bits I put in.
What is interesting is, I mean, here you have fan power taken to its... Bill started as a fan of the programme, as many other people have. And now, here he is, directing actors who are nothing to do with Doctor Who, in a tape which has nothing to do with Doctor Who, who is in the position of saying, I think the character should develop this way. And it's quite interesting that it's turned out that he has that power, and he's right as well. He actually has a lot more... The sad thing about... so this is awful for you to sign, isn't it? Because I keep changing in mid-sentence. I feel very responsible. Well, one of the sad things about playing the Doctor is that when directors come to direct shows, they kind of leave the Doctor and the companion on their own a bit, because they assume you've been doing it for so long that you know what you're doing. So they devote their attentions to the incoming guests, who they have cast themselves. Therefore, they have ideas about the characters. Whereas they take on board the Doctor and the companion as a constant. So very often, you're allowed to do practically whatever you like, which isn't necessarily good for an actor. You do need someone to challenge him. And I have to say, Bill does do that. He says, well, that's the obvious way of doing it. Let's go with something else, which is helpful as an actor, sometimes.
And also, concerning your error tape, is it true what John Peel said before that it's postponed indefinitely on the error tape? Is your error tape still scheduled for release next year?
My error tape?
Yes, your clips of the shows.
Oh, no, my era. I thought you meant error as in E-R-R-O-R. And there aren't any, it'll be a very short tape. It was due for release in May. It is completed and edited and ready, therefore it will be released. As I gathered, the Peter Davison years, which was scheduled to be done, has now been shelved, which is a shame.
What's the format of yours? Is it single episodes, or just you looking at like Tom Baker?
It's like Tom Baker, the difference being, however, that because we were very short of time, whereas Tom Baker actually sat and watched the clips, we weren't able to run them. They were put in afterwards, so I had to try and remember what had taken place. But I'm assured by John and Nathan Turner, who had edited it all, that it's come together quite well. It was done at Longleat, at the exhibition in Longleat.
I have a sneak preview of that one. It does look good, actually.
Is it? Bill's seen it. Last question.
I want to come up to date. How did you prepare for the part in Death of the Maiden? It's a very, very difficult, interesting play.
Yes, it's probably too long an answer to give now. Perhaps more suitable at my solo panel tomorrow or the next day. But yes, actually, no, I've finished playing it now. I'm at this moment still playing this part in England, you see, until Saturday night. They very kindly gave me 3 nights off so that I could come here. No, actually, it was very kind of me. It happened the other way around. I was booked to do this play until last Saturday. They extended it by a week. I said I couldn't do it, so they asked me if I'd do Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. So I did 4 performances up to Wednesday night, and then got on a plane on Thursday to come here. It's quite a harrowing play. It's about a woman who's been tortured some years before the play takes place, and what happens when she thinks she recognises her torturer and captures him. And that's what I've been doing for the last 5 or 6 months. I myself played the husband, and it did involve a lot of quite painful research, all right, but I'm not entirely sure that the audience want to hear about that now. This is a kind of panel embracing 2 other people.
It is.
But thank you for the question.
It's a very strong play, actually. Very depressing.
Have you seen Death and the Maiden over here? Because it's been on in New York with Glenn Close and 2 other people. Glenn Close and
2 other people.
2 other people. Who?
2 men.
Richard Dreyfuss, thank you. And can't remember the other one. Oh, Gene Hackman. And it's been made into a film at the moment by Roman Polanski. So it's quite something.
Like pull down the Tony Awards and shit.
Yes. Thank you for your question anyway. Well, I gather that's the end of this, the time we have available for this panel. I hope you'll be able to answer some of your questions, and please accept our apologies to those of you who have been disappointed in not being able to ask their question, not in our answers.
Of course not.
And we'll see you soon, won't we?
Yes, and I'll have another panel tomorrow. So I hope to see you all then.
Bye.
Jeremy's fine, he needs no other introduction.